Howdy Heroes Hearth, this is Kyle Fergusson. Today I get to sit down with a Medivh. It's Oxygen's Drated in their game versus Diamond Hands, game 4 of this past weekend. Drated, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
This is a rather wild game, but Medivh makes it such. How did you come about playing Medivh, and was it so you didn't have to play against Medivh?
Initially, so we picked Lunara, which I'm typically on the Lunara, but then somewhere in their draft they picked Tychus, and we thought that if we just picked Medivh, they were never going to be able to kill our Diablo, and we would probably just win the sustain war, basically.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because, yeah, the team did sort of leave Tychus open, and the casters were a little worried about that. Tychus got grabbed on the enemy side, and that just sort of changes everything. Medivh was very, very last pick for you all.
Yeah, it's the last. I think it was the final pick of the draft, so they had no chance of countering it, and it was just one of those games where we thought. And also, they picked Tyrael, so we had the ley line to counter the Sanct.
So it's a perfect storm for Medivh then.
Pretty much, it was just all the cards kind of lined up.
Does Hanzo work into that sort of window of attack that Tychus does? Because obviously Tychus has his minigun. He's going to burn for a very select amount of time. A Medivh shield's going to be huge against that. But doesn't Hanzo keep firing along the way, or does that still just come in a burst moment?
So I think the Hanzo it's just a little bit harder to spell shield the Hanzo damage. So if they'd probably pick something like another hard poke hero, maybe Mephisto, maybe I wouldn't have been as inclined to pick the Medivh, but Tychus is very predictable in his damage structure, and it's just very obvious how they're going to kill the Diablo this game. They're just gonna either tongue him or root him or something, and then they basically have no way to kill him with Medivh, I don't think, in this game, unless we misplay it.
Now, how did you come about learning Medivh? Because he's extremely unique, extremely bizarre, but also like a really good piece on your resume for getting into tournament play.
Yeah, that's very true. When did I get into learning Medivh? A long time ago, honestly. I've always been interested in kind of the more, I guess you could say, quirky or unique heroes in this game, like Abathur, Medivh, who kind of can change the dynamic of a draft entirely. Vikings as well, but nah, I don't really play Vikings. But I think Medivh he takes a lot of games. I had a Smurf one season, or it literally became my main, where I just like only played Medivh in Storm League, basically. And it just takes a lot of games and scrims as well.
What you're doing isn't exactly obvious, maybe, for those who don't know what Medivh's base abilities are, but I think the real show of how much the game has changed is just the way that Diablo's playing and how different he's making his engagements compared to a non-Medivh game.
Yeah, he can very freely. I'm kind of escorting him along the way and kind of guiding him to do whatever he wants. So right there, we're not really looking for a kill per se, because it's only me. We have Lunara top lane, but we're just forcing cooldowns, buying time. Basically, right now we're kind of stalling, playing for the later game. Not really worried about the first immortals too much, but the Medivh does allow the Diablo to grant us a lot more vision in this game and allow him to be a lot more aggressive. And we can look for small little things like this. Although here I went way too far and almost died for it.
But you've also got this like whole side project with Medivh, which is this Arcane Rift. You have to complete a certain number of heroes hit in order to benefit from a bacon quest. Quest hit 40 enemy heroes with Arcane Rift without dying, permanently increase the damage dealt by 75 and the cooldown reduction for hitting an enemy hero by 1 second. What's the priority in playing Medivh? Should you be solely focused on this quest like a Convection Kael'thas and then kind of play normal when it's over, or do you have other jobs along the way that are more important?
So that's a really good question. I would say it depends on if you're playing Storm League or if you're playing competitive. I think in competitive, your damage as Medivh is not super relevant a lot of the time. So usually you'll just get it passively throughout the game. Your main goal is just to not die. Now in Storm League, like I trust Madara to do most of the damage this game on Lunara. My job is not to do damage; it's to protect the Diablo and facilitate engages and rotations and whatnot. But like I said, in Storm League, maybe your job is to do the damage. So you maybe want to play a little bit more aggressive. But in this game particularly, I think our plan was as long as we're playing late game scaling, we should be completely fine. So I don't need to go for hyper aggressive plays to get a couple more stocks.
And yeah, because of that, we just saw a great situation of that there, where you were basically flying over the enemy 4-stack, and in Storm League, absolutely that Medivh would have landed right there, gotten 4 stacks, and done some sort of teleport business to get away. But not worth it in this environment.
Exactly, yep.
Is the Anduin an important part of this puzzle? Like, Diablo gets to do whatever under the sun they want. They get a shield. They might not be able to reach the portal because of Malfurion. So Anduin makes up for that error in the draft.
I would say it's not extremely necessary, but I think it was our best option left in the draft. But if we had like a Malf or a Deckard, I don't think it would have changed things too drastically. Though the Anduin does give us a little more options, which is nice. Like this engage here.
Sure, the light bomb on the unstoppable Diablo already right on top of them. It's crazy how well you and Vince are sort of gelling in this. Did you guys practice this a lot?
We've played one game in
Nice.
scrims of Diablo Medivh. So, and I think, but like in this series, we had only played as the team 8 games together. So we're very new. It was kind of a spur of the moment decision for the most part. So we have definitely not practiced this a lot, and I think it looked pretty good for us not having played it that much. I was a little bit surprised. I was a little worried when we picked it that we were gonna maybe scuff a couple of our engagements, but it's end up actually looking pretty good.
It got really interesting too because the enemy is so light on bigger CCs. They still have some CCs, of course, but your ETC power slides and all that, which gave you guys a lot of wiggle room and maneuverability while performing these various maneuvers.
I think them having Tyrael is giving us kind of a free roam to do whatever we want, just because typically it's a tank who's going to stop me and Vince from doing this kind of action with like you said, like a power slide or something, but we're just do whatever we want this game, to be honest.
And that's what really stands out to me, is just how often Diablo doesn't care about necessarily making the wall connection, and it's more just about a overpower body block, because after that Lunara actually has enough DPS to finish it up. So all we got to do is just get a hold of somebody over there, and then they'll be in trouble.
Yes, like right here when I've been playing Shrine, I'm just setting down my one, I can't remember what it's called, the Portal Mastery. I'm just telling Vince, hey, we're gonna portal here. I don't know where yet. I'm gonna look for the going portal. You can see me put it down for him again. And then right here, I think Lunar got a slow and got filth, and then he just walks up a little bit too far, and we kind of destroy him.
And then there's that moment where Tychus makes that value exchange, like, okay, I'm going to turn around with a minigun, and then you have answers to it. It just gets rather crazy. But you brought up your one button here, and that's part of a talent. Let's get into that a little bit.
So Portal Mastery allows you to place both sets of portals. Typically, you can only choose where to place your end portal. But having the Portal Mastery is kind of a nicer way for the tank to know exactly where I'm going to have my portal down. And I can also like float in the air like this and create 2 portals while not having to leave the ground, which is also really nice.
Oh, interesting. Without this is, in my observations from Medivh's from Storm League, a required level 1 talent.
Yeah, I would say so. I think any really good Medivh player is probably going to pick this talent.
I
it's
didn't
just
know
too strong.
I didn't know that it had the extra feature that normally Medivh has to land when you're doing portals.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird little thing. You can, so right there, as you saw, I think if you, actually maybe I'm lying. I don't remember honestly.
It says part of the text here,
trolling.
and is no longer breaks Raven form. So I believe what you're saying 100%.
Yeah, okay, I guess I am right. Yeah, honestly, yeah, okay.
But
I tripped myself up for a little bit there, but
well, and
yeah,
even so, you're only proving the point that you take this every single game because you don't know
yeah, honestly,
what it'd be like without it.
I picked it in so long, I just couldn't even remember if I was telling the truth or not.
Absolutely. So Raven's speed, Raven's intellect, look, not even worth looking at. This not only for the coordinated play of letting people know where portals are going to be, but being able to stay in that Raven and get exactly the angles you want. It's just too big of a talent pick.
Yeah, and providing the vision for your team constantly. I don't need more movement speed really to follow their team. I'm providing enough vision just by doing what I'm doing now.
Make up for that in other avenues like communication and proper positioning and knowing where you should be beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get Raven Familiar. A Raven joins the allies each time they use a portal. The Raven will dive an ally. Lots of theming here. Basically, auto attacks within the next 5 seconds of riding a portal. Get a bonus attack with them from this Raven, accompanying a basic attack, dealing damage and slowing them by 30%.
Oh, this talent's really strong because it just allows more damage to come out of Medivh, although you're not really expecting it. Medivh himself doesn't provide a ton of damage himself, but with this talent, if the whole team takes the portal and goes in, it's like an extra 1,000 damage on the next auto attack, and the slow is also really nice.
Yeah, 30%.
I think the other talent is not bad, but the armor per se. However, it's not really. It's just not as strong as the Raven.
Yeah, that's a lot of burst. And does this thing go back on you if you were to ride a portal?
If you go back and forth?
Yeah.
I don't believe so, but I can't remember. I don't think you can take it back and forth and get another Raven.
It'd be a pretty strange scenario, and I doubt most portals are used in the way to set up Vala, for instance, to go 2 feet back and forth and shoot out extra Ravens.
Yeah, maybe you'll see something later this season where we have Vikings Medivh.
There you go.
And you've got all the Vikings coming out with the extra auto attack damage from the portal. It's
oh my
kind of scary.
I faced that once. It was horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, yeah.
The spin to win pile into a bunch of Ravens. It does some damage. Arcane Explosion. When Force of Will expires, this is your level 7 talent, dealing damage to nearby enemies, plus 50% of the damage dealt that it prevents, up to 614 at this level. This makes a lot of sense given the Tychus, which is a very small window of damage, but high damage to your Diablo.
Yeah, exactly. Just another one of those talents that, get facilitated by having extra damage come out of something that's not actually the Medivh himself, coming from the tank this time.
Is the size on this pretty good? Or pretty small explosion? Do they have to be that Diablo kind of up
decent.
on top?
Okay. It's decent. It's not the biggest, but it's not the smallest either.
Any other level 7 talents here that are worth it?
I used to go the like as a solo queue carry build. You can try the auto attack. I don't think it's that bad. You have to be really good about weaving in your autos though with your Q, but it's doable in a non-team setting, I think.
Interesting, and heals for part of the damage dealt. Yeah, that sounds pretty solo queue. Little take care of yourself, a little get weird on your own. Level 10, you got Leyline Seal, which you brought up is a counter to Tyrael, but for people who are not familiar with that, what's that about? Yeah,
so Tyrael Sanct, the way it works is it puts like a zone on the ground, but the zone can get nullified by the ley line specifically. This is a bit unfortunate. That was one of the situations where you saw me and Vince as a lack of coordination right there, a little bit. But yeah, the land can completely nullify the Sanct, so the Sanct will disappear when they're coming out of the ley line. So you can then counter it with by putting down CC and whatnot on top of the ley line after the Sanct. It's kind of honestly a pretty hard counter.
Yeah, it's a ground effect, and since he doesn't exist anymore, the ground effect times out. It's a wild bit.
Right, exactly.
Nazmas is getting some crazy stuns this game, too.
Yeah, Nazma's played out of his mind this game, to be honest. He's just hitting big stun after big stun, allowing us to just press on and on.
Really showing the ridiculous range of that jet propulsion.
I mean, this game, you see, like, we've never been in trouble.
Yeah.
At all, really. I mean, we're kind of just slowly just winning the game just by not dying and just letting Madara hit him, and Vince also to hit him. I think Vince had the second highest damage in this game, if I remember right.
Is there a positioning that's trying to be broken by something like the Dragon's Arrow or Dragon Strike on the enemy side?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't really think it did much.
Okay, I was just curious from a Medivh's perspective. Something like going through portals and a Dragon's Arrow coming in and stunning you all seems effective, but I didn't know if that zone is actually better blocked on the enemy side by the Dragon Strike instead.
It's a good point. I don't know. I think the Dragon Strike is slightly better for them this game. I think their only chance this game is to play the 20 Shrine and win it with Big Red Button and Dragon Strike 20, which is pretty strong. So I think if he had that in mind, I would agree with that assessment.
Kind of like prolong the damage since you've got this Medivh that's going to counter serious upfront damage. It's an interesting thought because so many times you can't predict a Medivh in your own home games. They're going to happen someday, and you work with them as best you can and you deal with them the best you can. So if after playing so much solo queue Medivh, you saw one on your team, how's the best way to make use of that? What can I do to be a good friend to Medivh when they're on my team?
I think allowing him, so if you're playing the tank per se or the DPS, you can play probably a little bit more aggressive than you're used to. However, you need to realize that by you're allowing to play aggressive, you need to be dealing more damage because you have the Medivh. Also, if you're the DPS, a lot of the time I'm the one that's clearing waves in our scrims and in our games. I'm like the pseudo other offlaner, you could call it, but when I'm a Medivh, I'm hardly clearing waves at all. So Madara needs to understand that, you know, in his other games playing with me, he might not have had to clear as many waves, but this game it's his job, so you have to take that in consideration when you're playing against Medivh.
One thing that's really impressive that you're doing on Medivh here is the force of wills are all actually absorbing damage. Like, for instance, your Lunara there took half their health in one big go. There was no panic from you. You didn't land, you didn't come out of bird form because you knew the damage was already done and over. And putting a shield on them at that point wouldn't do anything. So it's a lot of predictive skills outside of just hitting lots of rifts and getting stacks.
Right, and I think that's why you have to just play a lot of games on the hero, because you have to understand the enemy's heroes as well and what, you know, they want to do and, you know, how they do damage. Their cooldowns as well compared to yours. It just takes a lot of innate understanding of the game as well to play Medivh properly.
So here during this really tense fight, there's lots of abilities going out. Are you trying to get on a certain angle? What's kind of your concern here?
So here's, I thought we were gonna lose this because, like I said, the Odin 20 and the Haunter are really strong at zone control. So I thought we were just gonna lose this. I'm really just trying to facilitate Vince to do what he wants to do. And there I got a 3k shield. I remember seeing that in game almost. So really just trying to allow Vince and Nazmus to get the engages that are gonna actually win us the game. And so I don't need to do anything crazy. I'm also holding Leyline for the Sanct as well, so I don't really want to Leyline unless Sanct comes out, but there I could.
Right, Sanct was over zoning out the healer and trying to get the front line down, which ended up working fantastically as Malfurino ran for it. And right now you're kind of pushing up and around, sort of leading your team to herd and eventually cut off Hanzo here.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that firing was unexpected completely.
I didn't think they're gonna walk into it, but
well, you
just did. So
you did a certain trick called Medivh cheats, and it looked like it was going to be a complete miss. You know, people are aware of the talent, but you're able to retarget it, direct it once with an increased range. And that allowed you to catch them completely off guard. The audience, the casters, everyone was surprised by the sudden change of direction in that shot. Let's go over the last two talents we haven't talked about here. Enduring will prevent at least 636 damage here at level 22, with Force of Will to reduce its cooldown by 4 seconds. Any competitors here on our 13?
No, this is... I mean, maybe if you're like... Maybe with the Vikings Medivh comp I talked about, maybe you could go Circle Protection, kind of cheese comp, but I'd say 95% of the games you're just gonna go Enduring.
Just for more good. And then since you already have a healer in tow, you're communicating, reabsorption just not valuable. What about solo queue?
No.
Fair
It's just not good enough.
Fair enough. Numbers aren't there.
Yep.
Temporal Flux. Basic attacks reduce Medivh's heroic ability cooldown by 3%. Each enemy hero hit by Arcane Rift reduces Medivh's heroic ability cooldown by 9%.
This was more of the new age talent, actually. Back in the CCL days, I would always go Stable Portal. Or the HCC days, I would always go Stable Portal, but nowadays I feel like the Temporal Flux, just having that extra ley line, I feel like is worth it. If you can get 2 ley lines off in a fight, which is actually pretty common, then it can definitely just win you a fight sometimes. So I think it's worth it.
Just worth the threat and the removal there. Particularly in a situation like this where the enemy team and Tyrael is countered by that, and you can get into some mind games of now you can sank now that I've used my heroic. Oh, just kidding. Now it's back.
Yep. I think all his 16s are honestly pretty good. Probably one of the more competitive talent tiers of his. The Arcane Charge is pretty weak comparatively, but it does do more damage. So if you are solo queue Medivh, it could be considered potentially.
Sounds like an important distinction to make whether or not Medivh needs to do any damage at all or is able to just empower the team.
Exactly. That's the biggest question you always need to be asking when you're playing Medivh.
Level 20, any other options here? And we didn't talk about Polybomb. Is it viable?
I like Polybomb, actually. I think it's pretty good. But usually when you have some sort of big frontline CC, it's usually just better just to set them up for good engages with Leyline, and obviously this game with the Sanct, it was necessary to go Leyline, but I think Polybomb isn't bad, especially with the low cooldown.
Would you ever grab an extreme situation, Guardian, or Dust of Disappearance, any of these other 20s?
I like Guardian, actually, and that probably comes with me liking to clear waves. It's how I win games usually. So I think it's actually a really good talent if you're very behind on the map and you're kind of struggling. Maybe you're behind all games, struggling to clear waves which definitely happens with Medivh comp sometimes. It could just help you facilitate the map a little bit, try to catch up. It's a pretty good talent, to be honest. It's not picked that often, but when it's good, it's very good.
And what about Dust? This really lame competitor to Brightwing.
I don't know if I've honestly Have I ever picked this talent? I don't know. Maybe like maybe once in my life, but it's such a weird talent, honestly. Like I don't know. I don't know when you would ever pick this talent.
That's fair. That's fair.
Maybe some grand cheese comp you come up with. Some stealth comp.
Well, there's way more to talk about than I think we could cover in this single video. There's so much nuance and so much draftability to consider, but if you were to recommend to people out there who want to get into Medivh, maybe for their own NGS team, maybe for their own, roster and resume, where should they start, and what would you say they should work on first?
I think the most important thing is probably trying to help your tank facilitate engages. I think is one of the main reasons Medivh is played, and also just learning to hit your W's. You've got to play Medivh a lot to understand when the damage is coming. So I wouldn't get discouraged if, you go into a game, you just absolutely feed out of your mind and your team's flaming you. It's okay. Trust me, I've fed out of my mind before on this hero. It's a pretty hard hero, so
That's fair. So limit testing is the positive way to say feeding out of your mind. You got to know what you can pull off, what you can do, and eventually figure out actually the entire roster of Heroes of the Storm so you can counter it effectively with a well-timed shield.
exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for this rundown. Everyone watching at home here, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell here at Heroes Hearth for more Learn to Play Heroes of the Storm action. And of course, the ongoing CCL Season 3, which has awesome matches just like this one. Stay tuned.